Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm excited for today's episode. I'm joined by one of our master coach leaders here at the IAWP, Laura Albers, who is an IAWP certified holistic wellness coach, a mental health therapist, and the founder of Albers Mind and Body Wellness. And we're talking together about cultivating confidence. Confidence in our personal lives, confidence in supporting others, and in our own business and careers. And I believe confidence is something that you're not just born with or only lucky people have. It's something I believe is available to all of us as long as we have the tools to learn how to cultivate it. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this episode. And this is a special episode of Live Well, Dream Big because it was created live with our holistic wellness coaches in training to support them in building their own confidence in coaching and supporting others. And they're really in this dream big phase of their journey. So I hope you enjoy taking a listen in. This is really a must listen to episode if you're someone who either wants to overcome your own fears and have more confidence in life, or if you're already starting to dream big and thinking about how you can make an impact in other people's lives. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be talking with you today about an important topic, confidence. And, it's not something people talk a lot about because either we don't want to admit we don't have it, or we're not even aware of how much or how little confidence we have until we try to do something new, right? So today we're talking about cultivating confidence and the 3 steps to bring more confidence to your life, to working with your clients and your business. And I'm joined today with Master Coach Laura Albers. Laura is an IAWP certified holistic wellness coach, as well as a mental health therapist and the founder of Albers Mind and Body Wellness. Hey, Laura, welcome.
Hello, glad to be here.
Glad to be here with you as always. And I'm excited because we're talking about confidence. And, confidence is something I think we all want, we all need, but it's not necessarily something we're actually born with, right? So today we're going to talk about what confidence is and how we can get more of it. And here's one thing I just want everybody to know before we get too far along. Confidence is for everyone. Confidence is for you. No matter your upbringing or your past, everybody has confidence available to them. So whether you want to have more confidence in your personal life, in your relationships, or with helping others, or sharing your message, or running your business, confidence matters in everything you do, right? The funny thing about confidence, though, is that sometimes you experience these fears that are really standing in the way of your confidence, like, what will other people think of me? What if I make a mistake? What if I'm not good enough? What if no one says yes? What if people don't like me? What if I don't know what to say? Or what if I fail, right? And if you can relate to any of those, you're not alone. These are among the top fears people face that I think really hold them back from going for what they want in life or going for their dreams, right? These fears kind of block your confidence and they get in there and they stop you from taking the action that you're really meant to take. And the problem is if you don't take that action, then you don't gain experience. So experience is super huge because experience actually helps you to build more confidence, right? So it's kind of this catch-22. So what should you do if you lack confidence? Well, today we're talking about it, and we're going to be highlighting also the 3 common fears that really hold us back from feeling confident, as well as some simple strategies to release those fears and get on with creating the life you desire. So let's dive in. And we often like to start out with the definition of the topic we're covering just so we're kind of all level set on what we're talking about. So Laura, let me turn it over to you. What does confidence even mean?
Yes, so I'm going to give you sort of the Webster Dictionary version of definition of confidence. So really it's this feeling of self-assurance, arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. Can also be thought of like as a belief in yourself, in your own powers, your own abilities, your own skills. And really just think about it like when you feel confident, you tend to hold your head up high, you trust in yourself, you put yourself out there more. Though, as we're going to talk about today, fear is often, almost always actually, along for the ride. So keep that in mind as we're kind of talking through all of this stuff today. And so, yeah, and I want to check in with you guys too, just thinking about, like, do you feel like you have confidence in yourself or in your life? Maybe for your training, your IAWP studies, for your practice. And then just sort of think about, like, what or who comes to mind when you think of confidence. And then lastly, sort of what's your biggest challenge when it comes to confidence?
Yeah, and if you're not listening to this live, maybe you're taking a journal out right now, you're just kind of writing that down for yourself, or if you're driving along and listening, just kind of put it in the back of your head. And, it's an interesting point, Laura, because sometimes we feel confidence and other times we don't. And sometimes you can tell, yeah, like you said, fear's kind of along for the ride. So let's talk about this first step to cultivating confidence, which is create confidence within yourself. And yeah, it all starts with the self, right? It's funny because we want to gain confidence in different areas of our life, maybe in our relationships or in business, but it really does all come back to ourselves. And it starts with our own work. But where does confidence actually come from? Are we born with confidence? I used to think, okay, you're either confident or you're not, right? Do some people just naturally have confidence while others don't? Why do some people seem so confident and sure of themselves, right? We all know those people that are like, wow, they really seem to have it together. So where does confidence come from? Let's talk a little bit about this. And I think it's a good place to also talk about what confidence isn't. Again, confidence is not something you're born with, right? So to me, that's kind of huge. It's like, oh, that means I can somehow get it, right? It's not something I'm born with. It's not something you're usually taught. And it's not something only lucky or fortunate people have. It's really something truly that is available to all of us, but we do have to choose to cultivate it from within. So that's kind of what we're talking about right now in this first step. And really, I think one of the best places to start is with a self-assessment, right? Because I think too often we're just running around through our day-to-day, our unconscious mind is running our thoughts without us really paying that much attention to what's happening. We're just kind of going through the motions of the day. And, we might be telling ourselves a lot of fears, which are sort of holding us back and interfering with our confidence and the action that we want to take, but we may not even be aware of it. So when you do a confidence self-assessment, it helps you to take some time to really get clear on what your own beliefs are about yourself, right? So for example, some questions you might look at in your self-assessment are, what do you think you're good at? What have all others told you that you're good at? What lights you up and makes you feel confident and purposeful? And kind of on the flip side, what things do you feel you lack confidence in? What has you kind of questioning yourself? And I think here's where the gold really is, like, what beliefs are showing up around both of these sides of the equation, right? So what belief do you have about feeling confident, and what beliefs and fears are showing up when you feel less confident? Because under both of those circumstances are kind of some beliefs or fears that are driving both of those realities for you. So we kind of want to get to the underlying beliefs of the fears that are showing up there. For example, in your self-assessment, you might find that you write out, you're really good with talking people and listening. And your belief underneath this is that you believe you're really good at helping others with their challenges. So you've always been really good at listening and talking with people. People just tell you that, I've always told you that they can just really open up to you. Now on the flip side, maybe you say, okay, I don't feel really confident with public speaking or talking to groups. So what is the belief that's under that for you, if that was your belief, or it's something else, right? But for example, if you're afraid to talk in front of groups, you might have to dig a little bit deeper to find out why that is. Is it that you don't have any experience doing it? Maybe. Or is the fear that you're worried you won't know what to say or you're going to make a mistake? Or is there some sort of fear like, what are other people going to think of me, right? So we're not going to analyze this too much in this stage, but it's really, the self-assessment is really, I think, just simply about bringing awareness to ourselves and seeing on paper what our beliefs and fears actually are. So kind of what's playing in the background and is it true? So sometimes I think just seeing stuff on paper, journaling it out, writing out, it brings it to the surface, and it really can be sort of a magical first step because we can look at it objectively and say, okay, wow, I didn't even know I was thinking that, but that's not true, right? But if we don't bring it to the surface, we don't have a chance to really look at it. It kind of shines a little flashlight on it. So that's the first piece, doing the self-assessment. And then around that, it's about choosing what activities really build your confidence, you know, and what depletes it. So you've got these things that you're doing that might have you questioning yourself. So once you do your self-assessment, you want to start building in the activities that help you to really build on your strengths, the ones that you already have that make you feel confident, right? And then it's about taking little baby steps in those areas that you noticed, okay, I don't feel confident over here, or I do have some fears. And here's a big point I want to make. Your goal is not to ignore the fear, right? Because you look at something, you're like, oh, I got fears there. I'll just focus on what I'm good at. You don't want to ignore the fear. You actually kind of want to disprove it. And that takes basically taking action. That's what it requires. We can't go from point A to point Z, or we're just going to be overwhelmed and scared, right? I've seen this happen a lot with people where they're like, okay, I want to be confident in this area and I'm just going to go for it and do it all, right? But then they really freak themselves out. So it's not about taking always a huge leap. Sometimes it's about taking small steps toward it, but it does require action to go from point A to B and so on. And then you kind of take note and you're like, okay, what happened? Did my fear really come true when I tried that? So that's the cool thing about baby steps. You get to keep checking in, keep doing that self-assessment with yourself.
Love it. I love that. I love that. I mean, I think it's so much about like learning to trust in yourself, which I kind of, as you're saying, like I see as a skill, and it comes with practice. As you said, it comes with taking action, and it comes from experience, and it comes from within. So I'd love to share just kind of like 3 sort of tips to really build this confidence from within. Okay, so the first one is really to make self-care a priority. And we've probably all heard this before, but in regards to confidence, even research shows, that you tend to feel more confident and more self-assured, sort of hold your head up high, as I talked about in the definition of confidence, when you look and feel your best. So, deciding and identifying the things that really align with that, and then ensure that they happen as often as possible. Also, just keeping in mind that, when you take time to care for yourself, like you're speaking directly to your self-worth, which is directly speaking to your confidence. So maybe perhaps thinking about it from that way too, might be a little bit of a shift as well. And then another tip number 2 is to box it out. This is kind of a fun one, I think, because it's really a physical action that you can take to sort of start releasing some of this, maybe pent up energy, fear, stuff like that comes up often when we're trying new things, and when our confidence might feel a little shaken. So box it out is really where we don't want to let the negative self-talk just go unchecked, right? Like we want to take a stand. And so physical action you can take is like the times that you get stuck sort of in that spiral and that negative, self-talk, that judgment, and, where you're questioning yourself. It's really about, like getting in that boxing stance, and like you can take 10 boxing jabs and, picture that you're knocking out your inner critic, so you're kind of TKOing that self, that self-talk, that critical, inner self that's telling you you can't do it. And then bonus to that really is that, doing something physical, helps us to get out of our head. It helps us to release negative energy, and it helps us to feel stronger. So, I mean, kind of a win-win there. So that's tip number 2, is to box it out. And then lastly, kind of for this part, is to really stay in your lane. And I see this one all the time. I've been guilty of this myself at times, but it's really about, instead of comparing, competing, or coveting, the 3 C's, what others have, really it's about being in competition with only one person. And you can probably guess that's yourself, with the goal that you're really improving yourself every day. And lastly, I just like with this piece, I love the word yet. And so I'm going to encourage you guys to adopt that word. So, stop saying things like, I'm bad at tech, or I'm not a confident coach, or, I don't know anything about business, because really those are very limiting beliefs. They really box you in, and they're not going to allow you to sort of grow and learn those skills. So instead it can be something like, I'm not a confident coach yet, or I'm not as confident as I'd like to be yet, but every day I'm taking action, or every day I'm gaining confidence, you know, something like that. So focusing on that keyword yet, I think is a
Ooh.
great strategy.
I love that because again, I think it's just you might not even know you're saying these things to yourself. So like what you're saying, Laura, is okay, like we're talking about do the self-assessment, bring it to the surface, and then you start saying, oh, I'm actually saying certain things, but you can flip them around. You can say it a different way. And I love that whole thing about yet. And the boxing it out. I'm like, okay. I mean, are you suggesting literally like getting like doing a physical workout? Like, I love it. That's too fun. That's too fun. But you know what? It's kind of funny when we bring our body into like our own emotions and feelings and our desires. It really does. It really can create this integration. So I love that visual image. And I'm like, okay, that's super fun. You know, let's talk a little bit about a fear that I think can come up in this first stage when you're looking at your own life and wanting to cultivate confidence. And it's the fear of vulnerability, right? Like we often fear being vulnerable because we worry what other people are going to think, that they're going to judge us or that we're going to look stupid or sound stupid. And this usually sounds something like, okay, what if I'm just not good enough? What are other people going to think of me? What if people don't like what I have to say? What if I make a mistake? Right? These are kind of like little doubts and fears that we're having. And I'll share with you guys on this idea of vulnerability, fear of vulnerability. You know, these are the same fears I've been having lately about launching this podcast, right? See, because fears don't really ever go away. And I just want you guys to know that. So like, it's about getting in there with the fear now, right? They don't go away as you create more success in your life. They just sort of resurface in different ways as you grow to new levels. But the thing is, you get to learn how to work with them. So instead of like hiding from the fear or denying the fear, you're like, oh, there it is again. And you're like, wait, I think I've done this before, right? So there's some level of practice with this, and I want to share that. Let's talk about some fixes for the fears, Laura, because you know, and I know you've worked on this a lot with your own clients and with yourself, and like we can fix these fears, right? And I think the first one is to normalize it and kind of like own it, right? Because we're used to not owning it. We're used to kind of saying, oh, I don't want to look at that, right? But the best way I have found is actually to play the fear out as if it's actually going to happen. And that's like, oh gosh, I don't want to do that because then I have to like think about how it's actually going to be. And it sounds kind of crazy, but we do need to normalize the fear. And to do that, we need to really talk to it and show ourselves that it's not going to be that bad. So it is truly about facing your fear. And for me, that's all about kind of going to the dark place of whatever the fear is and like playing it out and seeing what's really going to happen. Because again, most of the time we're kind of trying to run from the fear because it is scary. But the problem with that, which we don't always realize, is that the fear doesn't go away. It just keeps kind of festering underneath the surface and it's actually growing bigger, right? So instead we want to be like, hello, fear. And we want to do the reverse. We want to play it out. So I thought it would be kind of fun today to have Laura ask me a few questions about this fear that I'm having about doing something new, like the podcast, and just sort of show how like this can play out. And this is something you can do with yourself. You can kind of journal it out. You could have somebody else ask you these questions. And this also kind of gives you a little bit of glimpse into like what coaching can look like too, right? This is very just skimming the surface, but I thought this would be kind of a fun way to show you how you can face your own fears. So Laura, can we try this out a little bit? This is a little bit ad lib, but.
Yes, let's do this. All right. All right. So Suzanne, what are you so afraid of?
Well, like I said, kind of freaking out about doing this new podcast. I think I'm most afraid of just like not knowing what to say, or like, what if I just don't have enough to share? Those are some of the things that are coming up.
Okay. And so why are you so afraid of not having, enough to say?
I don't know. I guess I know I'll have like things to say. I guess I think it's like I'm gonna make a mistake or the whole thing might fail. It's just like that whole idea of doing something new again. Like maybe I'm going to be like fumbling my words or not know what to say, or just, I guess it comes down to just like not getting it right.
Okay. Okay. And so why do you feel like you're so afraid of fumbling your words or making a mistake or not getting it right?
Well, I I guess I think I'll just be like embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then what will happen if you feel embarrassed?
Okay, so if I'm embarrassed, I think I'm just gonna feel like so stupid. I don't know. I feel like okay, no one's listening, or no one respects it, or they don't like the podcast. Yeah, so I'll be like
Okay.
sort of shameful about it.
Okay. Okay. And so then if no one likes the podcast and basically like what you have to say, then what will happen? Like, what are you imagining?
Okay, so I'm just kind of playing this out. I guess nothing like horrible is actually gonna happen. I mean, I'm not gonna die, right? I'm not gonna get hurt. Um, and I guess I don't even think this is like gonna happen. But yeah, so I don't think there's gonna be some like devastating effect, like if it doesn't go well.
Okay. Okay. And so, do you really believe that no one will like what you have to say? Like how likely, I guess, is that?
I guess like kind of thinking about this now and playing it out, like I don't think that's likely, right? I mean, here we are today, we're already like going live, right? And I've been doing this for many years. But if some people didn't like it, or didn't like what I was saying, I guess I would probably be like, all right, those are probably not my tribe. Those aren't the right people that would be listeners anyway. So I know it's about creating a message that resonates with my own tribe. And I've done that before, right? So I guess just playing this out now with you, Laura, I mean, I see it really is just a fear.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. And so then if nothing bad will happen, as you've kind of talked through, like, would you be willing to give it a try?
I think I would. In fact, it's happening right now.
All right. So the fear was that you would just be embarrassed.
Yeah.
That was the fear that you had. So what do you believe now?
Yeah, I think like I see like underneath that fear, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get it wrong. I might be embarrassed, but as I play it out, I'm like, okay, like my reality, that's probably not gonna happen. And I think my truth really is that while I'm gonna have some fears, like I'm not my fear, right? I'm not fearful. I'm actually brave. I'm actually brave for putting myself out there, making mistakes if I do make them, trying something new. And it comes down to at least I'm trying and growing. And to me, that's brave, right?
I love that. I love that. So what are you going to do the next time then, sort of when, or if this fear comes up?
Call you. No. We'll do this again and again and again. No.
I love it.
I guess I'm going to be like, yeah, there's that fear. I've played it out. And like, it's not really the reality. It's just more of a feeling. And I can focus on that, or I can focus on the courage part and the bravery part. So I think when I feel the fear, I'm going to remember how it plays out and just notice it's a feeling, but it's not the reality.
Love it. Love it.
Ooh, that was fun. So we just saw like basically how you can go from fear to your truth, right? That was kind of just like a fun little off the cuff thing here. But as you can see, it's really about empowering yourself, right? To whatever you say, I'm embarrassed, or I fear this, it's just by like, and so what if that does happen, right? Like Laura just kept going a little bit deeper. That allowed me to sort of play out this fear, which is a feeling, to really see like, is it even true? So I think that was fun, Laura, and I appreciate you doing that, because I think it's like, okay, this is not really my truth.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I think that's such a great way to really get to the bottom, as you said, and then really get to more of the truth, so you can hopefully, move forward with the fear that might be there. So, and I wanted to add maybe a couple other sort of fixes for this fear of vulnerability. So one of them is really to just recognize the benefit. So when you're vulnerable, when you share your story, your setbacks, your successes, your mistakes, all of that stuff, others not only learn from that, and they connect more to you, but it's also like sort of another way that you're giving them permission to not be perfect, and just to like keep going. And that is truly such a gift. That is such a gift. I know anytime I've seen, people that I look up to just be their authentic self, and just, like I made a mistake here, I fumbled my words there, and just to be able to say it and own it, and really not react much to it, just like, okay, no big deal. I mean, that is, to me, is so empowering and inspiring. So keep that in mind. Also, I think it's about knowing your limits. so maybe you start small. So it's really, for each of us, to decide how much we feel comfortable sharing. But also that when we do share, we want to relate it back to the client, so, and what their needs are. So, we don't want to overshare, and we don't want to suddenly turn it around and make it all about us either, but kind of ask yourself or sort of check in with yourself, if sharing this is helpful for your client, so that when you do share, then you can sort of relate it back to them or how it might help them in some way. And really just start small. If sharing your story or something emotional like seems too much right now, just start by sharing maybe that you're studying to become a wellness coach, or start by just sharing some kind of value or a tip or a resource or something, maybe to help a client or something like that, or help a prospect. So that can be kind of another way to like start small.
I love that. It's like starting small. And what you're kind of starting to talk about now, we've been talking about confidence kind of in your own personal life, right? But then you're like, hey, this is my personal life. And if I'm a coach and I'm helping clients, like there's going to be kind of this area where my personal life starts to come into my practice, right? And it's like, how much do I share there? How do I be vulnerable? How do I be authentic? I love it. And it really brings us to step 2, which is about creating confidence for coaching your clients. Let's talk about it, because we have been talking about creating confidence from within, looking at our own fears, and the other side of confidence. So that's kind of internal, right? Like what's happening on the inside. But the other side of confidence is more external. It's really about that action. And when we take action, as I said earlier, we gain experience. Like when we do something, we gain experience and we gain confidence, however small the amount, right? And the experience itself starts to inform us. It shows us kind of a new belief, right? Even if things don't go perfectly, right? Like I'm sure in launching the new podcast, like things won't go perfectly. There will be mistakes made, things will happen, but I'll start to form a new belief, and it won't be that old fear. It might be something else, right? So even if things don't go perfectly, the cool thing is we're usually one step further, right? We're one step more experienced. We're one step more confident than before we even started. You go outside your comfort zone, you try something new. It was scary, but you did it. It wasn't as bad as you thought, right? And you see some good come out of it. You see that you could do it. So Laura, how do we gain that experience, in your opinion, to really give us that confidence when we are coaching clients? Because step 2 is cultivating confidence in creating confidence with your coaching clients. And this step is really for you if you're already coaching clients, or even if you're not, and this is maybe just an idea in the future, you can start applying this to your own life and really anyone you're helping in your life. But Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I would say really 2 of the best ways to feel confident, in coaching your clients is to, number 1, practice, practice, practice. And that's actually one thing. And then number 2, to really get organized in your process. So, let's dive a little bit deeper into each of these a little bit more, so it's kind of clear how you might do each of those. So the first one is really about practicing as much as you can. So that might be with peer coach, that might be with practice clients, and with your practice clients, it might start out with sort of anyone who needs coaching, and then you move towards, hopefully your niche clients, eventually that being sort of the goal. And then with group coaching labs, we've got our core 4 labs now, we've got our core 9 labs, and just really being on those calls, both as an observer and really also as a volunteer. That's really where you also get additional experience, but you can learn in both mediums there. But I would encourage you, as you're on those calls, have a notebook handy, whether you're actually volunteering or whether you're, observing, or when you're with practice clients, things like that, to take notes after those sessions, reflecting on what went well, what you want to continue working on, just maybe things that you struggled with. And this is non-judgmentally, I want to add that. So this isn't a time to be critical and think it was horrible. At least find one good thing that you felt like, you did well, or you said well, or you felt confident about. And then really with your niche clients, you can also note what you worked on that was helpful, what steps or sub-steps or resources of your signature system you want to keep, what you want to tweak, what you want to add, just sort of take notes so that you can always improve, right? And you can get feedback from your clients. So that's kind of that first piece, is just to really practice.
I love that. I just got to interject. I love that. That practice piece is like so huge, right? Because as we've been talking about, that practice is what leads to more experience. So your confidence starts to naturally just increase when you're willing to practice. So I love that tip.
Yes, yes. And then as part of practice too, there's a couple things just to be aware of, and it's really, lean into core. I think you probably all have heard this before. You've definitely heard Suzanne say this, I'm sure. It's like lean into core. However, at the same time, you also want to be in the present moment with your clients. And one of the things I just wanted to mention with this is that, I often hear like new coaches get so focused on core and what questions they're going to ask that they're practically already asking their next question before the client has even answered the first question or, the current question. And so it's really just important to, lean into core, but also at the same time, kind of stay with your client, stay in that present moment as much as you can. And then lastly with this, really just adopting that be the guide, not the guru mindset. So just really relying on your story and what you've overcome, because often our niche is who we once were or who we still might be in some ways. We just want to be, a step ahead. But yeah, just remember that, just to have, like, you just need to have overcome like a portion of your challenge in order to help others. So it's kind of that guide, not the guru. So really keeping that in mind regarding the practice.
Yeah. And I'll just, before you go to your second one, I just want to kind of recap a little bit because I love what you're saying. And for those of you who've heard us talking before, be the guide, not the guru is one of our philosophies here. And really, it truly is about showing up in a certain way, right? Like it's showing up for your clients in that way, but also kind of for yourself, taking a little bit of the pressure off, knowing that you don't have to have all the answers. And Laura's talking about leaning into the core coaching method because that is going to guide you through that process. As much as you have to share and the advice that you want to give, like core is there to help you to stay in that be the guide, not the guru mindset. So it's very cool because they work together. So I love what you're saying, Laura, about taking on some of these mindsets and practicing. And really, you gain that experience over time as you do that. Now, I know you want to talk a little bit about organization too, which I love.
Yeah. Yes. And actually that reminded me, I just want to say one quick thing also about sort of the core and all that. Just remember that when you're actually coaching with a client, they don't likely know the core coaching method. So they're not going to know like, oh, geez, Amy, you forgot to ask me, how long you've had this challenge for, so sometimes we get so caught up in those questions, but, keep in mind that yes, we want to lean into core and we want to follow core. But also your client typically is not going to know the core coaching method. So they're not going to even know, let's say if you missed maybe a question or something. So just kind of keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive into getting organized. So, there's lots of ways, obviously we want to get organized, but it's like, for starters, it's just kind of gathering all of your, let's say like new client paperwork. So when you have a new practice client or paid client starting, getting all of that paperwork together and, keeping it in maybe one folder that's marked, new client onboarding or something similar. And also consider keeping, in addition to maybe like an electronic version, maybe keeping, I'm just a fan of the old tried and true, paper methods. So I also like to keep personally like a physical copy of it as well. So I also keep like a binder for my signature system. Like I'll keep, a binder with dividers and tabs. And so for each step, I'll have, a tab and a divider so that any paperwork, resources, handouts, things like that go with that particular step, they're all nice and neatly organized and it's right there at my fingertips. So you can also do this on, Google Drive, Google Docs. You can even use like a client management system, like such as Practice Better, that can all sort of help you stay organized. And then just lastly, like one other like kind of personal thing that I do is I just start like a one-page document. For me, it's just even like a legal pad of, paper for each client. And then after each session, I'll just take a note of like the overall theme that we worked on, like what step maybe we're working on and any resource that I sent them, just so I can sort of keep track of like where each person is at, especially when you're starting to have, many clients that you're working with at one time. It can help to really just keep everything straight.
Yeah. I mean, this organization piece is so important. At first you're like, okay, what does organization really have to do with confidence? Feels like a different topic, but when you're not organized and you're not doing the things that you're suggesting, Laura, what happens is you're not carving out time to really work on your goals. you're going to spend so much time with all the things that aren't organized that, you know, you end up not blocking things out on your calendar to prioritize you and your path, really. And so not being organized is really a form of procrastination, which is really a fear that's underlying lack of confidence. So you can kind of see how these are all tied together. So you have to get organized and prioritize, because when you do, you're basically telling yourself, yes, I'm doing this. And that's just one, you know, way of starting to lean into building that confidence, because you're putting it out there and you're like, yeah, I'm doing this. So I think that organization piece is super important. On the flip side, like, you could spend way too much time trying to be organized and like not taking other types of action, right? So you have to look at, like, am I procrastinating on being organized, or am I like over obsessing with being organized, right? So like, there's kind of a balance, but the key thing here is, I think, again, bringing it to the awareness, like you said, Laura, so that you can start to like set those priorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think preparation. I just always feel more confident when I'm prepared.
Yep.
Organization is
Yeah.
such a part of that.
That's huge, you know. And I think it's interesting because there's another fear that can come up at this layer of, you know, this idea of helping others, starting to coach clients, this kind of second stage, right? It's common for new coaches, though it can occur for anybody, right? Anytime you're trying to do something new in your life. So as you start to worry you don't have enough knowledge, and you kind of like, you're like, I need more experience, I need more training to actually feel confident. You start looking at these external other things that are going to give you confidence. Or you're like, I have to have my own challenge in life perfectly solved, right? You start setting these sort of like expectations. And so it leads to what we call the imposter syndrome. You're like, if I don't have this accomplished yet, like, I can't do this, right? And it really comes back to that whole fixing the fear thing that we talked about earlier, where you start to normalize it, you start to own it. Same as that first fear we talked about with vulnerability, you know, right here with the imposter syndrome, same thing. It's normal to feel some anxiety, nervousness, uncertainty, right? When we start to put ourselves out there and whenever we do something new. So when it happens, it's like, okay, you want to own it again. We want to normalize it and own it, and kind of remind ourselves, like, if I have this, this means that I'm actually kind of playing big versus playing small. Again, there's that mindset shift. We have to like remind ourselves of these things, you know, because again, our conditioned response is going to be, let's run away from the fear. It feels kind of scary. Let's avoid it. But as I said earlier, I don't think the fear is probably going anyway. It's just going anywhere. It's just going to be getting bigger as time goes on. You know, it's funny because you think you gain experience again and you reach like a certain level of success and your fears go away. It just doesn't happen. As I shared earlier, I still have fears, right? They haven't gone away, but then you just get used to like acknowledging them and working through them rather than against them. So again, don't avoid the fear, look at it. And if you don't have the fear, remind yourself, check in, hey, maybe I'm not stretching outside my comfort zone. Maybe I'm playing it safe. So again, I guess when I think about it, I'm like, while I don't love fears, I guess in a way they're almost indicators that like something good is happening. I'm onto something here. I'm about to grow. I'm about to evolve. So it's kind of a fun way to make that shift so they don't seem maybe as scary. I don't know. What do you think, Laura?
I love that. I love just seeing your fears in a new way. Like so you start to like expect it, number one, but then also start to embrace it. And maybe we're not there yet. That's totally okay to say, I'm going to embrace it. But as you said, when it comes up, it's like, that's a sign I'm playing a big enough game. That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. And I think there's some additional ways that we can look at sort of addressing this, you know, imposter syndrome. And it's, you know, it's number one is sort of like focus on this being of service, you know, so that your message and your services aren't going to resonate with everyone, as you kind of mentioned earlier. And that's okay. Like, in fact, that's more than okay. And a recent quote I actually heard about this, which I loved, was, you can't say the wrong thing to the right people or the right thing to the wrong people. So it's really focusing on who you truly want to serve and make your why louder and larger than your fears.
Ooh, I love that. Make your why louder and larger than your fears.
And post that. Like, if that resonates with anybody, like, post that anywhere you're going to need that reminder. And then really another strategy here is like doing one thing every week that stretches you professionally. You know, so what we really essentially want to do is like build our comfortableness with being uncomfortable. And that's going to help build your confidence, you know, knowing that you can handle trying new things. I always kind of, for some reason, I always picture a cat. You know, last time we talked about a squirrel with shiny object syndrome. Today, this reminds me of a cat. It's just sort of like, you know, cats always sort of land on their feet. And just kind of having that belief of like, I'm going to land on my feet no matter how this goes or no matter what happens. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be fine. You know, just sort of beginning to adopt that mindset can be really helpful. And then the last thing I'll just share is just really stop comparing yourself to that person, right? We all know that person, right? You know, because it's that person that's almost always somebody who's been at it so much longer than we have, right? Like we hardly ever compare ourselves to somebody who in our mind is like kind of like way down here or something. It's always this person that's like way up here in our minds. And so of course we're going to feel like they're light years ahead of us or that we're never going to be maybe as successful as they are. But we've got to keep in mind, you know, first of all, they didn't start that way, right? They didn't start that way. And that secondly, that we all start from zero and work our way up. All of us. Even Suzanne, right?
Well, I would say when you compare, you despair. When you compare, you despair. But the truth is, it's something normal to do, especially when you're going on a new path, like you're saying, Laura. Like these are things that like happen, and you do start comparing yourself. And maybe it's sort of innocent. You're checking out what other people are doing, but somehow it like creeps in. It's real sneaky, right? And then it starts to like affect your confidence. And when I first got started in coaching, my gosh, I was like always comparing and despairing, right? And one day I realized that the cool thing is that if you see someone who's doing something that like you want to be doing, instead of compare and despair, it's almost like this is an example of what's possible, right? Another mindset shift here. Like, oh, wow, so-and-so's doing something and wow, it seems so great. And I wish that was me. And like, think of it, wow, this is an opportunity. This is what's possible for you if that's also in your heart. Right. So it's just a little bit, instead of compare despair, it's like, ooh, this is a possibility. Right. So I think that's kind of huge to think about things that way. And
yeah. Compare equals rejoice. Maybe it's like, we need to find a new word.
Yes.
Give that some thought, but I love what you're saying there.
Yeah. We'll have to come up with a new slogan there. I love that. Let's talk about step 3, Laura. We've been talking about confidence in our own lives, in coaching our clients. Let's talk about creating confidence in our business, because once you create that confidence with yourself, then you start applying it to helping other people, right? It's like these multiple layers. Your next step is to start creating confidence with your business. And that's why we really do kind of go in that order, because I truly believe they're building blocks. Again, like, you try to go out there and just go to like make whatever you're doing to make an impact in the world, and you try to start there. Well, if you haven't started from within, it's going to be even tougher, right? So they are building blocks, and you get to see yourself make those shifts. And that's kind of cool because you gain that experience. You see those little confidence things increasing. So by the time you get to this point where you're focusing maybe more on your business and how you're showing up in the world, even though there are new fears coming up, the opportunity is you can look back and say, oh, I tried some things along the way. I looked within and I had those fears, right? I did certain things and, I overcame it. And now I get to kind of do it again at this level. So I think that's important. And when it comes to confidence in your business, you're going to be asked to do, I think, even more new things that feel uncomfortable, because there's something about saying yes to showing up in this way that is going to kind of push you to this other level where there's going to be discomfort. Those fears are still going to be there. And the cool thing is, the more you ask for support and get support and really stay surrounded by community with other people who are on a similar journey as you, and you just kind of keep sharing, you're going to naturally be supported to take those new steps, kind of step by step, and have that confidence. So yeah, it's about getting organized, developing systems and automation, getting the help you need, doing the self-assessment, like we said in step 1. All of those things are kind of little steps on the journey to building confidence. And when it comes to your business, I think you can do that self-assessment again, right? Just like we did in step 1. What are strengths regarding your business? What do you believe about those strengths? What are some of the things you need help with? You know, what are the fears underneath those things that you don't feel as good about? Do that self-assessment again right here. And then you can say, okay, where can I get support with some of those things that feel really uncomfortable? You know, can I share with someone who's a like-minded person? Can I connect with my community about it? Can I delegate? Can I hire out? There's a lot of different things you can do to kind of support yourself, rather than, like Laura mentioned before, kind of saying, okay, like I'm not techie or I can't do that, is going to leave you more in that despair place. So I think that support piece is really huge. And Laura, I know you have a lot of tips for creating confidence in business too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. Well, just to kind of piggyback sort of what you just said, it's like, I think a key to feeling confident within your business is to identify what skills you currently have, what things you'll do for yourself, and then what things you'll need to get help with. So really just, grab your notebook or your journal and just kind of start making that list. And you're knowing you're going to be adding to it along the way. It's not like this is a one and done thing. But once you have your list, you can identify who specifically you'll need to hire and sort of, your budget and things like that. So for example, you might, hire a lawyer to get your business set up properly and legally. You might hire a bookkeeper or a business coach or a virtual assistant. There's great websites like Fiverr and Upwork.com, which can be great for that tech help that you kind of mentioned a second ago, or like graphic design help at a very reasonable rate. So we don't have to have all of these skills. Many of them we're going to learn along the way, but often it's going to be, getting that help and that support. You might also even consider like hiring household duties, like, maybe a housekeeper or, a meal delivery service, maybe a nanny or a personal assistant, something like that, that can help free up your time spent outside your business so that you can then focus more of your time in your business. Yeah. So there's that. It's really about getting that support. And then it's really about focusing yourself in your business. So, I really try to focus on two main goals in my business. One is the revenue generating tasks or the money making tasks, because, we all want to have a huge impact first and foremost, but ultimately we also have to make money. Otherwise you really don't have a business, it's not sustainable. So, at some point you really do have to focus on these revenue generating tasks. And so just sort of looking at or asking yourself or writing out, what am I going to do each day, week, or month to bring in, let's say, new prospects or new referral sources or new clients, things like that. So those revenue generating tasks is the one of the goals. And then the second goal really being kind of a list building task. And that's really where you want to continually be bringing in new people into your world or your sphere, who are interested in you. They're interested in you, they're interested in what you do. And, you get them on your email list by providing what we might call like a lead magnet or a freebie, or an opt-in, and you're going to provide then continual support and value. So, things like tips or, blog posts you've written, things like that. And really what we're talking about here is like these people then on your email list are really your hottest leads. So if that part is kind of new to you, no worries. Like as far as like lead magnets and all that, like Coach Launch dives into that a lot more detail. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, just something to be thinking about for now, but that, more on that to be coming. So that's kind of the first part is doing the, creating confidence in your business is kind of, that's sort of the first part. Then there's planning. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything before I kind of dive just a minute into planning.
Well, I love what you're saying. I mean, obviously you want to get the support. Let's just break it down. Get support, set the goals, and then the final piece you're talking about is planning. It's like these kind of all work together. So yeah, give us a quick tip under planning for sure.
Yeah, so I love, this has been a huge game changer for me personally. So I set aside weekly time as well as one day a month in my calendar. And I personally do this at the very start of the year. So I'll just put in at least one day a month. That is my planning day. So I'm not seeing clients, I'm not doing anything else. And obviously if I have to change that later on as that month gets closer, I will, but I will make it non-negotiable. And then I try to set at least 3 hours a week. That's like focused time. Now, obviously you're going to have to, we all have different life situations and responsibilities. So you might need to break that up, but finding that time that you can spend on planning, dreaming, strategizing, all of that kind of stuff, where you're thinking about things like, ways of nurturing and connecting with your audience. So like, let's say like social media content or email newsletters or videos. And notice I'm saying, or, I'm not saying like you have to do all of these things, especially to start. But when you have that time already set to do things like this, it becomes much less like overwhelming. One other tip I have about this is just to keep a running list of topic ideas, quotes or facts or, things that just spark your interest or spark your inspiration or whatever that maybe applies to your specific niche, or that can just be in general health and wellness. But just keep a running list so you're not ever like just staring at your blank computer screen having no idea maybe what to write about or what you can post on. So I love doing that. And so really that planning piece is just really important.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. The planning piece, the support piece, the community piece, setting the goals. Like what it all comes down to, as I hear you talk about this, Laura, is like getting organized again, but staying connected, right? Like you're not going it alone and you have some plans and you're going step by step. And that's really what we've been talking about throughout this entire time, right? It's like taking those baby steps. Now we've been talking about some of the fears that come up at every stage. And I just want to say this, Laura, like as you're talking about this, I think another common fear that comes up in the business side of things is just like this whole fear of failure, right? Because it's so new for people that are going on a new career path, starting something completely new, showing up in such a different way, that this fear of failing, no matter how much experience you have, like can still play out. Especially if you're doing something new, like starting a coaching business, right? Because we put so much pressure on ourselves that like we have to be successful, or we have to succeed, or we can't make a mistake. It's kind of interesting. And I think without spending too much time on this, I just want to say this fear of failure is similar to the other fears. Like the real fix for it is just, again, normalize it, own it, go into it, don't brush it under the rug, right? Take some time to look at it, like what's going to happen if you do fail. And likely, I think if you go through a similar process to what we kind of demonstrated before, you're going to see that you're probably not going to totally fail. And if you are, like, it's not going to be the end of the world. And what does it mean? So take some time to do some of that inner work as you think about any of the fears that are coming up, that we've talked about today. And I'll share this quote, Laura, that I love. Oprah once said, I think, the thing you fear most has no power, right? It's your fear of it that has the power. So facing the truth will really set you free. And so bottom line is, whatever you're fearing is not it. It doesn't have power. It's really the feeling you're experiencing about the fear that's controlling you, right? That's why we kind of demonstrated diving into the feelings, seeing what's behind it, so you can kind of deconstruct it a little bit. So I think that's a huge piece. And I'll just say that as I've watched people grow over the years, have been on my own personal growth journey as well, I really think that the difference between successful people and those who aren't is not that they had some break or that they, had extra resources. It's really that successful people are willing to face their fears, to face the truth, and like really work through it. And I invite everybody to kind of just take that in, right? Like it's possible for everybody. So I wanted to share that.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, it's about failing faster, right? So if you're going to quote fail, pick yourself back up and get back out there.
Yeah, fail faster, right? It may happen, just go for it. Let's talk about some next steps, Laura, because we've covered a lot today, I think, as it relates to cultivating confidence. And really the best way to start making shifts in your life is to decide what you're going to do next, right? Because it's just easy to go about your day, your week, and your life and not put into action anything that you learned just today from listening. So choose one thing, even if it's just one thing you want to do next to cultivate confidence. And go ahead, write it down right now, or just kind of put it at the top of your mind, right? So you can write it down later. And I'd say be sure to check in on yourself tomorrow and the next day to make sure you haven't forgotten this next step that you want to take, because truly, with every next step you make, you'll move forward step by step and begin cultivating that confidence. And Laura, I do want to thank you for joining me today. This has been an awesome conversation on confidence.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go now to our coaches who are joining us live. And I'd love to hear from one person live, at least on a breakthrough that's coming through for you today. And maybe what you're going to do next to cultivate your own confidence. So if you want to share with us right now, you can just raise your hand if you're on video, or you can, if you're on phone, you can just unmute yourself. I would love to hear something that's kind of coming through as you've learned about confidence today, maybe anything you're struggling with confidence, or a new way you've thought to look at it, or even just an action step you're going to take. Go ahead, raise your hand now if you want to share. This is also, as you're thinking about if it's going to be you, this is also a good time to ask any questions. So we can kind of do our talk back now, take any questions you have on this topic. And if you have questions also, you can post them in the chat. And we'll look over in the chat now and see what questions might be coming up. Anyone want to share breakthroughs, questions? Oh, I think I see a hand. It's Apryl out there. Let me give you a microphone, Apryl. There you go. Hey, Apryl.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that presentation. That was wonderful. I just wanted to say really quick that what Laura was saying about being organized, which that builds my confidence. I like having things in order, but sometimes it's excessive because I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, wait. I can't move forward because I need this. But it's because I want the image that I want to present to my clients. I want everything because it's their time. It's the service that they're paying for. And I'm very service oriented. I want to make sure that they get what it is that they are paying for or coming to me for. And I'm getting things together. Things are really coming together for me, but I'm in the technology. Like I've seen my friends, like I'll talk to my friends or talk to people in my circle, about some of the things that I'm doing, or they'll come to me with their questions or if they need help with something, but I haven't coached people because I'm still looking at the construction of my business and gathering information at the same time, which for me, I know what my limit is, even though, I want to have everything together. That's what I'm saying. But listening to the confidence piece today, what I got from it and what I'm going to incorporate is, I think Laura said, after you said focus on being of service, which really resonated to me a lot. It was big. You said do one thing every week that stretches me. And so I think that will help me, because even if I'm taking baby steps, like right now I'm trying to develop workshops because I think that's where I want to start. I don't know if I want to start just seeing clients. I want to do workshops because I believe that will allow me to put myself out there, and it will create an interest in what I'm doing. And I'll be able to gauge where my people are at or find my community in that way. And I kind of have the areas where I want to do it. But I think I have to be, I find that this is challenging me to really be more proactive in trying to do that. So I think what will help me is just doing one thing every day, even if it's just seeking out a venue or inquiring, sending an email. For me, that's going to help me to move forward, because I'm having a little trouble with moving forward on these things that I want to do. But I really appreciate you all giving me, this talk on confidence, because it's already there, but I could use more. It's funny how you were saying, like, you're always going to be nervous about singing, because I used to sing and I've sung in front of people, but this coaching, this is like my baby. This is like, to me, it's putting me in a place where I'm going to be vulnerable, because I'm sharing, how I've overcome so many different things, but then I'm going to be able to use that ability to overcome, and then the training that you all providing to me to help other people. So it makes me feel a little vulnerable, and I want to be more confident in this. And I think that I will, but I need to take baby steps. And I just really appreciate y'all. I'm learning so much. Suzanne, thank you so much, for establishing the wellness. I really appreciate it. I'm learning a lot. I appreciate you guys. And I love you, Laura. You're the bomb. I told you that. But no, I love you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye. No.
I love it, Apryl. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it's cool to just hear like where you are and like the breakthrough that you're kind of getting from this idea of confidence. And I think I'll just share this. And I know, Laura, you might have something to share as well, but I just want to say, like, you sound like you're already a really organized person. And so like, what always comes up for people is like, it's easy to lean into like what we're good at. So you could be like you said, you could start to over obsess with being organized and prepared before you take the steps about the things that you're kind of afraid to do, right? So for those of you who are like not organized at all, like maybe you need to lean into it. And if you're super organized, maybe you need to lean out a little bit like Apryl and be like, here's the stuff I'm not doing because that seems scarier, right? So like that's where that self-assessment really comes in. And it sounds like Apryl, you've already started the self-assessment today just by being here and kind of processing that. So I love the action steps that you're going to be taking.
Oh, I love that. I'm a little bit like you, Apryl, too. I definitely way over organized. So mine's about pulling back a little bit. One just quick thing I wanted to say about that is that sometimes we want to have our entire program and like everything all done before we start like working with clients, you know? I don't know if anybody can resonate. I definitely used to think that way. And so I think it's just about, you know, getting it started or getting kind of the outline or the first step or two, but you want to make sure that people actually also like want to need the services too. So you don't waste all of this time, money, energy, all of that into creating something that possibly isn't something that somebody wants. But it's definitely kind of a different, you know, topic than really our focus for today. But I just kind of want to add that little piece. But Apryl, wishing you lots of success on your next steps. Keep us posted in the Facebook Thrive group.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure it sounds like people are resonating with that as well. And Christine is sharing a question, which she says, I've been fearing public speaking and self-confidence lately. Love the chat today. Yesterday, she decided to search out Toastmasters. She emailed them to get started. She's taking those baby steps. And so not as much of a question, but just a little bit more about how you've been fearing it, but it sounds like you're taking those next steps. I love that, Christine, right? Like you've got the fear, but you're like, okay, what can I do next? That's exactly what we've been talking about today. So you're already one next step ahead. Love it. All right, let's see if there's any other questions, breakthroughs, or comments out there. If you're on video, raise your hand. We can take you live. As you can see, it's kind of fun to do talk back with us, right? Sometimes you even get some personal laser coaching or some extra advice. So raise your hand if you have a question. We'll take another peek out there. And if not, you can also post in the chat. See if I see anybody else out there. So many people joining us today. We're just taking it all in right now. Danielle says, failure equals growth. Thank you for the reminder. In her previous corporate job, she had this painted on the wall, and it was such a relief to see it all the time. It takes away a lot of pressure to always be perfect and successful. I love that, Danielle. That's so huge. Absolutely, right? And for those of us who have those perfectionist mindsets like myself, I get that, you know, but we need those constant reminders. So I love that you posted that up there. That's awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions out there, and we're at the top of the hour, guys. This was so fun being with everybody today. Loved hearing your questions, loved hearing some of the things that everybody's working on. And Laura, thanks so much for joining me. This was great talking about cultivating confidence and being together with everybody. Take care, everybody.
Fun. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to IAWPwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's IAWPwellnesscoach.com/guide.